Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you're learning a new language, or maybe you've been kind of stuck on that intermediate plateau for, I don't know, years, you definitely know the frustration we're talking about today. It's pretty universal for language learners, right?
Oh, absolutely, that feeling.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
spend all this time, hours, consuming content, reading articles, listening to things like this, watching shows, and a new word pops up, or maybe a cool phrase.
Something really idiomatic, yeah.
Exactly. And you look it up, you understand it perfectly right there in that moment, in that context. You feel like, okay, got it. You'd recognize it anywhere.
Hmm.
But then maybe just a few hours later, you're finally in that conversation. Maybe it's a bit high stakes, like a work meeting, or you're trying to impress someone at a social thing.
The pressure's on.
Right. And the perfect chance comes up to use that great new phrase,
Yeah.
and nothing. Your mind it slams shut. Blank.
Poof. Gone.
It's gone. You knew the word passively, you could recognize it, but you just couldn't pull it out to use it actively.
And that gap, right, that huge canyon, really, between recognition, just seeing it, and retrieval actually using it. That's what makes real fluency feel so far away sometimes. So frustrating.
Yeah.
It's not really a knowledge problem, is it? It's more of an activation problem. And, well, historically, trying to bridge that gap meant just tons of forced practice. Often pretty stressful stuff, frankly.
Right, like endless drills or awkward forced conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the sources we looked at for this deep dive, they really pinpoint a very efficient, science-backed daily habit. It's designed specifically, like laser-focused, on closing that activation gap systematically.
Okay.
And the beauty is it's not about studying harder, cramming more words. It's about studying smarter.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then, to really unpack and explain this method. It seems remarkably simple, actually a repeatable three-step routine you can do in about 30 minutes a day.
That's right. We're calling it the learn and use habit.
Learn and use. I like it.
And its foundation is, well, it's rock solid, scientifically speaking. It combines two really major pillars from applied linguistics and cognitive psychology.
Okay, what are those?
First, the absolute necessity of what's called comprehensible input, or CI, for just absorbing the language naturally.
Right, hearing and reading stuff you understand.
Mostly understand, yeah. And second, the power of active recall. Specifically, tapping into something called the generation effect to actually produce confident output.
Generation effect. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
definitely need to unpack that one.
We will.
So this deep dive, it sounds like it promises a complete system. We're going to show you, the listener, exactly how to pick your content, how to use newer tools like AI to really deepen the context around the word.
Beyond just a dictionary definition.
Yeah, exactly. And then, crucially, the specific low-pressure ways to force those words you know passively, get them onto the tip of your tongue, and actually into your working vocabulary.
And the sources suggest you can feel that confidence boost, that sense of, I can actually use this even after just the very first session.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's get into the science behind why this works.
Okay.
All right, let's unpack this. Before we get into the how-to, let's build that foundation. Because if we understand the why, the cognitive engines driving this whole routine, it makes sense why, 30 minutes of this kind of smart practice could actually beat 2 hours of just mindlessly translating words back and forth.
Exactly. Understanding the mechanism makes the practice stick. So we've got two engines, as you said. Let's start with the input side. Comprehensible input.ci, CIIP.
Yeah.
I've heard this term a lot in language learning circles.
Yeah, it's foundational. It was famously really formalized by Stephen Krashen. His whole hypothesis basically was that we truly acquire language, not just learn rules, but acquire it intuitively by understanding messages. Specifically messages that are just a tiny bit beyond our current level.
Okay.
He coined that famous term I+1, where A is your current knowledge, your current level.
We already know.
Right. And the +1 is that little bit of new stuff, a new word, a new grammatical structure that you're encountering within that understandable message. Okay, I+1.
That immediately brings up that Goldilocks idea, doesn't it? Not too hard, not too easy.
Precisely. It has to be just right.
So if I'm, say, an intermediate learner, why can't I just jump into, I don't know, reading some dense philosophical text packed with advanced academic jargon? Isn't that challenging? Where's the line between challenging, which is good, and just overwhelming?
That line is absolutely critical because the brain, it needs context to figure things out, to infer meaning naturally, the way we do in our native language. If the material is way too difficult, let's call it I plus 50 instead of I plus 1.
Right. 50 new words in one paragraph.
Yeah, you just can't infer meaning anymore. You hit a wall. You end up spending all your mental energy just looking up words, translating word by painful word. You completely lose the thread of the actual message, the story, the idea.
Okay.
And what do you end up with? A massive list of words completely ripped out of context, which is exactly the kind of passive knowledge we're trying to escape with this habit. And that heavy reliance on translation, just looking everything up, if I'm understanding this right, that kind of defeats the purpose of acquisition, doesn't it? Because you're not building a direct link between the idea and the new word in the target language.
Spot on.
You're just building a link between the target language word and your native language word, like a detour.
Precisely. It's an extra step. That internal translation effort, it's mentally draining, sure.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it makes your language retrieval slow and clunky when you actually try to speak.
Right, because you have to go through your native language first.
Yeah. But when the input is truly comprehensible, when it hits that I plus 1 sweet spot, your brain is actually relaxed enough to follow the main story or idea. And then when it hits that little challenge, that 1 or 2 new words, it can successfully guess the meaning.
From the context.
From the context, just like kids do. And that act, that little aha moment of inferring and integrating the new word within the flow of meaning, that's how we move from just translating words to actually acquiring language.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So the goal of this first part, the CI phase, isn't just about randomly finding new words. It's about finding words that you can figure out, more or less, without completely stopping the flow, without breaking comprehension.
Got it.
And that sets you up perfectly. It gives you the high-quality, manageable raw material you need for the next steps of the habit.
Okay.
So the listener really needs to check that whatever they choose for their input, a video, an article, whatever, meets those 2 key criteria. 1, genuine interest. Because, let's face it, if it's boring, you won't stick with it. Absolutely non-negotiable.
That comprehensibility factor, making sure you're aiming for that I plus 1 so you only end up extracting a small, really high value list of words, maybe just 3 to 5 key expressions per session, not some overwhelming list of 50.
Couldn't have said it better. If you start with a list that's too long, you've already kind of failed the C and CI, the comprehensible part. And then the whole 30-minute habit is going to feel like a slog because you just can't possibly activate 50 new phrases effectively in that time.
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. Precision focus.
Okay, that brings us neatly to the second engine then, the output side. This is the mechanism, you said, that actually closes that gap between passive knowing and active doing.
Yes.
And this is where the psychology gets really interesting. You mentioned active recall and this thing called the generation effect.
Yeah, this is where the magic happens for activation.
Right.
If CI is about getting high-quality data in, the generation effect is all about forcing your brain to turn that data into a tool you can actually use.
Okay.
And it's not just some random language learning trick, you know. It's a well-documented cognitive principle, studied for decades.
So what is it? The generation effect.
Okay, so the generation effect basically states that information is remembered much, much better and retained longer when the learner creates or generates the information themselves.
Creates it, like comes up with it.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to just passively reading it or looking at it or even just repeating it parrot fashion.
Okay, contrast that with how we usually study.
Think about traditional study, right? You're relying heavily on what psychologists call recognition memory. You see a word on a flashcard, say, the Spanish word desroller. You flip it over, you see to develop. You recognize the link.
Yeah, that feels easy. Oh yeah, I know that one.
It feels easy because recognition is relatively low effort for the brain. But recognition memory is passive. It works great for multiple choice tests where the answer is right there in front of you.
It's terrible for speaking.
Terrible for real-time conversation. Because when you need to speak, there's no multiple choice. You need to pull that word desroller out of a blank mental slate.
Right. No cues.
Exactly. And for that, you need retrieval memory, the ability to access information without external prompts. The generation effect is powerful because it specifically trains retrieval memory.
How does it do that?
Well, when your brain is forced to physically generate a sentence using desroller, maybe writing it down, maybe saying it out loud from scratch, using its own cognitive resources, it has to actively build and then strengthen the neural pathways needed to find and use that word.
So the effort itself is the key.
The effort is the signal. The act of retrieving, struggling a bit, and then creating something new with the information that tells your brain, hey, this piece of information is important. Build a better road to get here next time. It literally makes memorization faster and more robust for future use.
I feel like that's such a crucial distinction that most of us learners just miss. We think studying means passive stuff, reading, highlighting, maybe reviewing flashcards again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But if the end goal is actually speaking, we need to practice the active process of speaking, even in our study time.
That is the core insight right there. Traditional methods like rereading your notes or flipping flashcards over and over, they mainly train you to recognize the information when you see it again, which is useful but limited.
Right.
The generation effect, by forcing you to produce the language, engages a deeper, more effortful cognitive process. It's that moment of struggle, that brief mental friction you feel when you're trying to formulate the sentence correctly. That's what cements the word in your active memory.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding the struggle. It's about leaning into it in a controlled way.
Precisely. In a low-stakes environment. And the real genius, I think, of this learn and use habit is how these two engines work together. The synergy.
The CI and the generation effect?
Yeah. CI naturally gives you the words in context. It shows you how native speakers actually use the phrase, giving you a kind of template.
Okay.
Then active recall, powered by the generation effect, forces you to take that template and reproduce it in a meaningful, personal way. You absorb the context, and then you immediately deploy it in your own context.
Oh, I see. One feeds directly into the other.
Perfectly. It's a really elegant loop.
All right, now that we've got the why, we've sort of primed ourselves with the science behind CI and the generation effect, let's get practical. Let's move into the action plan, the actual steps, starting with gathering our raw material. Step 1, choosing your input.
Right. And this step, choosing your input, it sounds simple, but it's absolutely fundamental because the choice you make here dictates the quality and the manageability of the whole 30-minute session.
Manageability being key.
Totally. Remember, we're looking for input that's genuinely enjoyable for you. That's the interest part, but also, critically, input that ensures the list of new words or phrases you end up collecting is short, manageable.
Okay, so how short is short? We mentioned maybe 3 up and 5 expressions.
Yeah, that's a good target. If you find yourself writing down, 10, 15, 20 new words from a short clip or article, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
It probably means the material was too difficult. It was really I+1.
Right. You weren't comprehending enough to just pick out the few truly new bits.
Exactly. You were probably overwhelmed. So the goal here is precision. Like you said earlier, precision bombing, not carpet bombing. Find that material where you understand maybe 95, 98%.
Wow, that high.
Ideally, yes, for this specific method, because that ensures the few words you don't know really stand out, and you've got enough surrounding context to make good guesses and later to understand their usage deeply.
Okay, so what are some practical examples? Where can people find this kind of Goldilocks material?
Well, it really should be highly personal and relevant to your interest. That's key for motivation. Maybe you follow a specific YouTuber who talks about, I don't know, photography, and that's your passion.
Okay.
And maybe they speak just a little bit faster or use slightly more technical terms than you're comfortable with. But overall, you get the gist of what they're saying. You're following the main ideas.
Or maybe an online newspaper article.
Yeah, about some topic you genuinely find fascinating. Could be politics, could be science, could be sports, something you'd read in your own language anyway.
Got it.
The key is that honest self-assessment of comprehensibility. If you find yourself hitting pause every 3 seconds to look something up,
Too hard.
way too hard. Backtrack. Find something easier. But if you're cruising along and maybe only pause once every minute or two for a quick check on a word or phrase, that's your sweet spot. And that pause, that moment of, what does that mean? That delivers your 1 or 2 high-value key expressions, the perfect raw material for step 2. Okay, so we've consumed our interesting, mostly comprehensible input. We've identified maybe just a handful, 3, 4, 5 key new expressions. Now move to step 2, collecting and crucially deepening understanding.
Right.
And traditionally, this is where you just whip out the dictionary, right? Look up the definition, maybe jot it down. Done.
Yeah, Slow's logical.
But the sources we looked at really emphasize that in today's learning world, especially if your goal is active use, just a static dictionary definition, it's often not enough. It's too flat.
Okay, why? What's missing?
Context, nuance. How is it actually used by native speakers? Is it formal, informal, common, rare? A dictionary gives you the what, but rarely the how, when, and why.
Okay. That makes sense. You need that richer picture.
Exactly. And this is where modern tools, specifically AI language models like ChatGPT or others, can be incredibly powerful. They can act as your sort of on-demand, low-pressure conversation partner for understanding.
Low pressure being the key phrase again. Not like bothering a native speaker friend with endless questions.
Precisely. The AI doesn't get bored or annoyed. You can really drill down. So we're not just asking the AI, what does this word mean?
Mm.
We need a more strategic interaction. The sources highlighted about 4 key prompts or questions to ask.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the first one?
Ask for simple explanations. Just start there. Get the basic meaning in plain English or whatever your learning language is. Sometimes dictionary definitions are overly technical. Ask for it like you'd ask a friend.
Okay, simple definition first, then.
Request multiple example sentences. And specifically, ask for examples showing how native speakers would use it in different situations, different grammatical structures. This is critical.
Why multiple examples?
Because one example might only show one specific usage pattern. You want to see its flexibility. Does it often get used with certain prepositions? Does the form change if you're talking about people versus things? Multiple examples reveal these patterns.
Got it. See it in action in different ways. What's next?
Understand the nuances. This is huge and often missed. You need to ask directly, is this word formal, informal? Is it kind of slangy, or is it academic? Is it common, or is it a bit rare or old-fashioned? Can I use it in a text message, or only in a formal essay?
Okay, that avoids potential awkwardness later.
Totally. Using a super formal word in a casual chat can sound weird, and vice versa. Understanding the nuance, the register, ensures you deploy it appropriately.
Makes sense. And the fourth one, you called this the critical filtering question.
Yes.
This turns you from just a passive learner into a bit of a language strategist. You ask the AI directly something like, honestly, is this a useful expression for me to learn right now? Is it common? Should I even bother focusing on it? Wow, okay, asking the AI to help you prioritize.
Exactly, because not all words are created equal,
Yep.
right? Some are super high frequency, essential for conversation. Others might be technically correct, but very niche, or maybe even sound a bit dated. If the AI comes back and says, well, that phrase is technically correct, but you'll rarely hear it in everyday conversation, or that was more common 50 years ago.
You filter it out. Don't waste your precious activation time on it.
Precisely. It saves you time and ensures your limited energy is focused on vocabulary that will actually make a difference in your communication. Prioritize the high-impact stuff.
Okay, this AI interaction sounds much more powerful than just a dictionary lookup. Let's make it concrete. The source material had a great case study using the phrase prevailing wisdom. Can we walk through how that dialogue with the AI might actually look?
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine you, the learner, just read an article maybe about investment trends or something, and you encountered prevailing wisdom. You add it to your short list for the day. Now you go to your AI tool.
What's the prompt? You'd want to bundle those strategic questions together. So you might type or say something like, hi, okay, so I'm trying to learn this new expression I found, prevailing wisdom. Can you explain what it means in simple terms? And could you give me, say, 3 example sentences showing how a native speaker would actually use it in different contexts? Also, really important, help me understand the nuances, like, is it formal or informal? And finally, is this actually a useful, common phrase worth learning for everyday or maybe professional conversation? Okay, that covers all the bases we just discussed. Simple definition, examples, nuance, and utility.
Exactly. And then you look closely at the AI's response, not just for the definition, but for all that extra context.
So what might the AI say back in this case?
Well, first it would define it, probably confirming it means something like the generally accepted belief or the common view on a particular topic. Pretty standard.
Okay. But then comes the valuable part. The AI might add context like, yes, prevailing wisdom is a great, pretty handy phrase to know. It's generally considered slightly formal, so you'd often hear or use it in professional settings, academic discussions, or when you're analyzing or critiquing something. Ah, okay, so maybe not for ordering coffee. Probably not. The AI might continue. It's especially common when you're about to introduce a contrasting idea or challenge that common belief. So while you wouldn't typically use it asking a friend about dinner plans, it's perfect for essays, debates, meetings, or expressing your opinion on broader social or industry trends. Okay, that's super useful context. It tells you where and why you'd use it.
Right. And then come the examples, which act as templates the AI might give you. 1. The prevailing wisdom suggests investing heavily in tech right now, but I have some reservations, showing that common pattern. Prevailing wisdom plus but plus challenge.
Okay, example 1.
2. Before the internet boom, the prevailing wisdom about starting a business was entirely different. showing it's used to talk about historical context or shifts in thinking. 3. Her research directly challenged the prevailing wisdom that creativity declines significantly with age, showing it used with an active verb like challenge or question.
Okay, seeing those examples really clarifies how it functions grammatically and structurally. Much better than just the definition common belief.
Massively better. You now see the patterns. It's often followed by a but or paired with verbs like challenge, question, contradict. It shifts you, the learner, from just staring at two separate words prevailing and wisdom to understanding it as a complete chunk, a functional unit.
And connecting it to a specific communicative action, like disagreeing or providing context.
Precisely. That connection to action is key for activation. So this whole strategic conversation with the AI, it takes that high-quality input you gathered in step 1 and makes it incredibly rich with context.
It primes the brain for the final step.
Exactly. It prepares you to actually use the phrase yourself, which is step 3. Okay, we've laid the groundwork. We understand the science CI and the generation effect. We've chosen our input carefully. Step 1. We've used AI to get deep contextual understanding of our few key phrases. Step 2. Now we arrive at the payoff. Step 3, the use part of learn and use. This is it, the moment of transformation.
Where we actually activate the vocabulary. This is where we move from passively understanding to actively producing the words, really leveraging that generation effect we talked about.
Right, and this is honestly the step that most learners skip. It's tempting to stop after step 2, right? You feel good, you understand the word now, you've got the definition, the examples, the nuances.
Yeah, feels like the job is done.
But understanding is still passive. Recognition memory is strong, but retrieval memory hasn't been built yet. To build that, you have to move to creation. You have to produce.
And the key here, according to the sources, is doing it in a super low pressure environment, where it's okay to make mistakes, where there's no audience judging you.
Absolutely critical. High pressure shuts down experimentation. Low pressure encourages it. So the sources suggested 2 excellent, very low-stakes methods for getting this crucial output practice. Okay, let's tackle the first one. Journaling. Seems simple enough. It is simple, and that's its strength. Journaling is perhaps the purest form of low-pressure, self-directed output. The practice itself is straightforward. Just write a short journal entry, maybe 100, 150 words.
About what?
Could be anything, really. Your day, your plans for tomorrow, your thoughts on a movie you watched. But ideally, try writing about the actual content you consumed back in step 1. That provides a natural bridge.
Okay, so if I watched a video about photography, I could journal my thoughts on the video's topic.
Exactly. Now, here's where the activation happens. The real power isn't just in the writing itself, but in the internal check you perform while writing.
What internal check? As you're writing your thoughts, you consciously scan for opportunities to weave in your new target phrases from step 2. You ask yourself 2 specific reflective questions. As you're writing your thoughts, you consciously scan for opportunities to weave in your new target phrases from step 2. You ask yourself 2 specific reflective questions. 1, okay, could I use prevailing wisdom here? How would I fit it into this sentence naturally? As you're writing your thoughts, you consciously scan for opportunities to weave in your new target phrases from step 2. You ask yourself 2 specific reflective questions too. And if I do use it, does it feel right? Does it sound natural coming from me in this context?
Ah, I see. So you're actively trying to slot it in, not just waiting for it to appear magically. That attempt, that little bit of mental friction trying to manipulate the grammar and make it fit your thoughts, that's the active recall happening, isn't it?
That's precisely it. You're engaging in what psychologists call effortful retrieval. You have the definition, you have the AI's example sentences as models, but now you have to apply them to your unique personal narrative or opinion. And it's okay if it feels a bit clumsy at first.
More than okay, it's expected. If you struggle for 10 seconds, maybe delete and rewrite the sentence twice to get prevailing wisdom in there correctly. That slightly clumsy sentence you produced yourself is worth 10 times more for your long-term active memory than just passively rereading 3 perfect example sentences someone else wrote.
Because of the generation effect, the struggle signals importance to the brain.
Exactly. The struggle is the learning signal. It tells your brain this phrase is relevant and requires effort to build a strong pathway to it.
Okay, journaling makes a lot of sense, especially for reinforcing writing skills. But what about speaking? For many learners, that's the bigger hurdle. The sources mention a second method using AI again, but this time for guided conversation.
Yes, and this one is particularly exciting, I think, especially with modern voice-to-text technology. It allows you to effectively practice speaking, producing the language verbally, but still in that crucial low-stakes environment.
How does that work? How is it different from just chatting with an AI?
It's different because you guide the AI very specifically. You're not just having a random chat where you might avoid the new words because it's easier. You are intentionally setting up the AI to force you to use your target phrase. It requires a very specific kind of prompt to kickstart the generation effect for speaking.
Okay, so you're turning the AI into your personal retrieval practice coach. We don't want the AI just talking at us. We want it to set the stage so we have to perform, linguistically speaking.
Precisely. The prompt is absolutely key here. You need to tell the AI exactly what you want to practice. Something like this. Okay, I'm trying to activate the phrase insert your target phrase here, e.g. prevailing wisdom. Can you ask me a question maybe related to my interests, like mention your interest, e.g. self-improvement or technology trends, where I would have a natural opportunity to use this phrase in my answer? I need to practice generating the response myself using the phrase. Huh. Oh, okay, that's very directive. You're telling it. Give me a scenario where I must use this phrase. Exactly. You're engineering the practice situation. Let's stick with our prevailing wisdom example. The learner gives the AI that prompt.
What might the AI ask back? Based on that prompt, the AI needs to generate a question that specifically invites the use of prevailing wisdom and requires a personal, unique answer. It might say something like, okay, focusing on self-improvement then. Can you tell me about a piece of prevailing wisdom in the professional world or maybe an online productivity advice that you personally used to believe in but now you fundamentally disagree with?
Hmm. Ooh, that's a good question. It directly cues the phrase and demands a personal reflection. You can't just parrot back a definition.
Exactly. The learner must now generate a cohesive, personal response. They have to think about their own experiences and opinions and structure an answer incorporating prevailing wisdom. And if they use voice to text on their phone or computer.
They're literally practicing real-time verbal retrieval and sentence construction.
Bingo. Under pressure. But only the minimal pressure of talking to a machine. The source material gave a really nice example response the learner might generate. Yeah, the one challenging the hustle culture idea. That's the one. The learner, perhaps speaking it out loud via voice to text, might formulate something like, okay, well, one piece of prevailing wisdom that I really struggled with for years was this whole idea that, having your work be your only hobby makes you somehow cooler or more dedicated or successful. I definitely bought into that. Hmm. Okay. Using the phrase naturally there.
I used to think if I wasn't constantly hustling, pushing myself 24/7, then I was being lazy.
Mm.
But honestly, now I realize that challenging that prevailing wisdom and actually prioritizing rest and having other interests, that's probably the real key to sustainable creativity and, frankly, just being happy.
Wow. Okay, that feels really powerful. You can see how constructing that answer, linking prevailing wisdom to such a personal belief and experience, would just weld that phrase into your active vocabulary.
Absolutely. The entire loop is completed right there. The phrase wasn't just defined or seen in examples. It was used to articulate a meaningful personal thought.
Mm-mm.
It transitioned from abstract data into a concrete tool linked to an opinion, an emotion, maybe even a past struggle. It's now yours. It's ready for you to use in a real conversation.
And you mentioned the low pressure aspect again. If the learner maybe fumbled the grammar a bit while saying that, the AI isn't going to jump down their throat, right?
No.
Generally, no. A good AI interaction here would likely just acknowledge the content of the response. That's an interesting perspective on work-life balance, rather than immediately nitpicking grammar unless specifically asked to. This keeps the environment safe. Focus on the primary goal. Successful generation and retrieval, not immediate perfection. That makes sense. Build the retrieval pathway first, refine the grammar later.
Exactly. And the confidence boost you get from successfully using a relatively complex or nuanced phrase like prevailing wisdom into complete meaningful sentence you constructed yourself, that's immense.
Yeah, I can imagine. It transforms the word from just being known to being usable, part of your active toolkit.
And notice how this whole process, from choosing interesting input to generating a personal response, leverages self-generated relevance. We know from cognitive science we learn things better, faster, and deeper when they're meaningful to us.
Right.
This habit engineers that. You start with input you enjoy, you filter it for vocabulary you see value in, and then you immediately practice generating it in your own voice, linking it to your own thoughts, beliefs, and experiences. It's personalized learning on hyperdrive. Hashtag tag conclusion. Hashtag text tag one. The power of the loop. Expert speaker.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. Let's try and bring it all together now for everyone listening. They now have this complete pretty simple and definitely repeatable habit, the learn and use habit that should take, what, maybe 30 minutes a day?
Yeah, roughly 30 minutes seems totally feasible once you get the hang of it.
So can you just summarize again, what is the real power locked inside this three-step loop? Why is it so effective?
I think its power lies in its grounding in cognitive reality. It respects how our brains actually learn and remember rather than just relying on wishful thinking or brute force memorization. And it acknowledges that our time and focus are limited.
Yeah.
The loop itself is, well, it's almost elegant in its simplicity, right?
Yeah.
One, choose. Find input you genuinely enjoy, and that's highly comprehensible, that I+1 sweet spot,
Yeah.
yielding just a small, high-quality handful of new words or phrases.
Step one.
Got it. Two, understand. Go beyond the dictionary. Use tools like AI strategically. Ask for simple explanations, multiple examples. Probe the nuances, formal, informal, common, rare. And crucially, filter for actual utility. Should even learn this. Get that deep context-aware knowledge. Step two, deep context. Three, create. This is the activation. Actively produce the language yourself. Force that generation effect. Use low-pressure methods like journaling or a guided AI conversation to practice retrieval, consciously trying to weave in your new phrases in a meaningful, personal way. Step three, make it yours. Choose, understand, create. Choose, understand, create. That cycle directly tackles the root cause of that frustrating intermediate plateau, the passive to active gap. It consciously breaks the common pattern of just endlessly consuming more and more passive input.
Which feels productive, but doesn't necessarily lead to better speaking.
Exactly. This forces intentional production. It means you're actively working with your brain's natural memory processes, specifically targeting retrieval memory day after day.
And it's the consistency, right? Doing this 30-minute micro routine regularly, that's where the real magic happens over time. You don't need massive, multi-hour study blocks. You need focused, consistent, repeatable effort that prioritizes that crucial step, moving knowledge from passive recognition memory into active retrieval memory. That shift, practiced daily, is how genuine fluency and confidence are built, one phrase at a time. That's where the real magic happens over time. You don't need massive multi-hour study blocks. You need focused, consistent, repeatable effort that prioritizes that crucial step. #2, final thought for the learner, host speaker. And that leads us perfectly into our final thought for you, the listener. It's something that really reframes the whole goal of language learning, and it comes directly from reflecting on these sources we've discussed.
Fun.
What is fluency? What if true communication ability isn't actually about how many thousands upon thousands of words you can recognize on a vocabulary list or a flashcard? What if instead it's really about how well, how confidently, and how quickly you can use the relatively few important, high-value words that you truly learn and, crucially, activate each day?
That's a powerful reframing. Quality and usability over sheer quantity.
Exactly. Maybe the real difference between someone who communicates effectively and someone who struggles isn't just the raw size of their passive vocabulary, but the strength and speed of their retrieval pathways for the core vocabulary they do possess. The good news is you now have a complete, concrete action plan, this learn and use habit designed specifically to build that retrieval muscle to strengthen those pathways.
A clear roadmap. So the challenge is simple. Find an interesting article, find a fascinating short video today, set your timer for 30 minutes, choose your input, deepen your understanding with context, and then make sure you actively create with those new phrases. Start the habit.
You might just find that those words you used to only recognize passively start jumping to the tip of your tongue in real conversations much, much faster than you ever thought possible.